You guys are amazing, by the way. This is the most energetic room I've been in and had the opportunity to speak in, so thank you. It's a special feeling to be back here 14 years later, so thank you to all the distinguished guests, and also thank you to the undistinguished guests. We won't name you, but don't worry. And congratulations to all the graduates. I'm incredibly honored to be here at your graduation. I've been thinking a lot about beginnings, the beginnings of things in anticipation of coming here today. And I remembered the moment I was first deeply moved by a movie and how it changed the course of my life. It was maybe the first film that I had ever watched. It was the original 1988 animated feature film, The Land Before Time. It's an absolutely crushing story of a baby long-necked dinosaur named Littlefoot and his mother. They're struggling to survive famine and earthquakes while making the long trek to a safer place in the Great Valley. Spoiler alert. At one point, Littlefoot's mom is fending off a T-Rex when she's able to keep Littlefoot safe, but sadly, she doesn't survive. With her last breath, she tells Littlefoot how to make it to the Great Valley on her own. Her final words are, "Let your heart guide you." It whispers, so listen closely. Just a devastating moment produced by Steven Spielberg and George Lucas. Littlefoot follows his little heart and makes it to the Great Valley. And from that moment, at the age of 6, I became obsessed with movies. And eventually, life led me here, to the Toronto Film School, just like a Littlefoot, long-necked dinosaur making his way to the Great Valley. I was never a great academic at any point in my life, but I do deeply love learning, and some crucial lessons were learned here at the Toronto Film School. Some I was aware of in the moment, and others caught up with me many years later. I'd like to share just a few. Don't just network, build community. Networking is a word that gets thrown around a lot in this business, and for good reason, but I've come to think of it as community building, and I've come to learn that community is everything. Many of the folks that I built community with during my time at TFS not only helped me get started, but remain pillars in my life and work to this day. Consider how you can support each other's goals, even when you feel like you don't have the time. Even if you think you're in competition with each other, you're not. Your peers' success is your success. That's the approach that I've taken, and I believe it's a key reason that I've had the success that I've had so far. Okay, here's another. Never eat a brownie that your classmate, who you know for certain is not a hobby baker, brings into an experimental music video class. And I realize that this advice might be coming a little late at this point, but it was profound, so I had to share it. Lastly, when in doubt, get back to the basics and keep it simple. Even in the most complex scenarios, look for the simplest path. I cut my teeth as a producer on independent Canadian films. It was late at night in the summer of 2015, 7 years after my graduation from TFS. My phone rang. It was an impressive producer who I had only briefly met in a job interview I hadn't gotten. They needed some urgent help on a massive TV series. It was busy in town, and I imagined I was a last resort phone call. The next morning, I pulled up to a disheveled-looking warehouse in Mississauga. Inside, they pointed me to a closet-sized office that read, "Chris Hatcher, temporary production manager." The series was struggling financially, and you could feel the tension in the air. I got called into the producer's office. I sat tucked away in the corner. The studio executives, showrunners, director, and producer all intensely debated how to get the show back on budget without destroying it creatively. I had no clue how to manage a production of this size. It was heavy with action, effects, prosthetics, and large set builds. But I did understand the basics, and I was surrounded by professionals nearly twice my age. I just needed to earn their trust and their respect. So I listened intently. I tried to alleviate issues to help stabilize their departments. And this often has the appearance of increasing costs, but it almost always has the opposite effect. I communicated quickly, honestly, with intention and respect towards everyone. And after about 4 weeks of intense collaboration, we were back on budget. And then 1 year later, I took over producing that series, and we went for another 40-plus episodes, shooting here in Toronto, New York City, and Paris. That very same warehouse that we were shooting in that day, 8 years later, is now a converted soundstage called Aspect Film Studios, which I'm the founding partner and operator of. In the fall of 2021, I had just completed the Netflix series Painkiller. I was burnt out. It was a feeling I was growing much too accustomed to, and it taught me a great lesson. My own inner sense of self cannot be linked to the measure of success that I have in this business. Having a hit TV show would not ensure my happiness. And to keep creating, I needed a better balance of my work and my life outside of it. I decided to take some time off and just focus on myself, family, and friends. And when I was ready, maybe I'd consider what my next project might be. By the spring, I had a pep in my step again. My imagination was active. I began discussing a film with a producer friend, and it was a film about Pricilla Presley that Sofia Coppola had written and would direct. The story spanned 3 decades, 2 countries, and Elvis Presley's house. The movie would cost at least $30 million to make. They didn't think that they could raise more than 20. I desperately wanted to help make this film, and I thought we could make it here in Toronto. But no one was convinced that Toronto would even work creatively, so I sent 4 location scouts out into the streets to photograph match to every single location in the script. I began putting a budget and production plan together, and it worked. Sofia was open to shooting here, but the financing wasn't closed. And then finally, we got word that one of our financiers had pulled out, and now we only had $17 million to make our $30 million movie. There was no way. I went outside. I sat in the sun for a while with my eyes closed. I remembered how burnt out I was previously. I was grateful that I felt okay again. I thought back to some of the chaotic moments of uncertainty on my first big TV series. I smiled, knowing it was all okay now. I felt back into some of my earliest moments shooting short films with my friends, some here at TFS. I thought about how unbelievable it was that anyone allows me to be in charge of anything ever. I stopped thinking. I listened to my heart. I called up my producer friend. Hey, we can do this. The film opened 2 weeks ago in theaters, and it's been the top 5 at the box office every day since.